Hey there, beekeepers. Welcome to another episode of Nothing But Bees. Today, what we're going to talk about is how the proliferation of pets and being divorced from the food chain has created emotionally charged and misguided reactions to how we should steward our bees. We're going to get to that right now. Hi, I'm Scott McPherson, and this is Beekeeping From Scratch, where it's about the bees. I really started out this video writing outlines for other videos, such as how anyone can breed good bees, but I realized I needed to write about dispassion in science first, and then realized I needed to write something before that, and before that, and then before that. I finally realized I needed to really start at the beginning and sort out why we've all gone soft. The largest majority of people alive today, especially in the Western world, no longer realize, either consciously or unconsciously, that life is a constant struggle to survive and thrive. We have advanced enough to live enough of a life of plenty to pamper not only ourselves, but to pamper our pets as well. And for the most part, we have become divorced from how harsh the reality of life really is. Even those of us that are struggling in modern life today still comparatively live a life of plenty. None of us have the same struggles to survive that we used to have not so very long ago. We think that because we no longer have to hunt or gather for our food, that we have somehow evolved, that we have created, relatively speaking, a life-sustaining and supporting utopia. We think that because we have developed a higher functioning brain, a sense of humanity, and developed what it means over time to be humane, that we have overcome the fact that we are predators. Well, here's a fact. We haven't. You are a predator. Your pets are predators. We are all predators. Everything that eats in one way or another is a predator. The only exception is that most plants absorb nutrients rather than consuming other life. But even plants do battle with one another. If you don't think so, take a closer look at those trees in your backyard. Trees form boundaries in their branches with other trees, separating one tree from another. Some plants poison the soil around them. Other plants are even more violent, like blackberries, raking the air around them to make sure that other plants can't compete for the light. Life is a battle. It's a constant struggle, whether you realize it or not. Throughout recorded history, man has domesticated and tamed a number of animals. Although humans have had pets throughout history, it's only very recently that pets have become strictly companion animals whose only purpose is to give and receive love. It is believed that the first animal to become tamed and then domesticated is the wolf. Both men and the wolf pups that they captured or rescued quickly developed bonds through filial imprinting and quickly became dependent on one another. For the pup, they have no choice in the matter. It is pure instinct. Once a pup opens its eyes and it can see you, it quickly develops a bond that cannot be broken, and you become the wolf's imprinted parent. Cats do the same thing, but they regain a measure of independence as they get older. Dogs, however, pretty much remain loyal to the parent and to the pack pretty much for life. A bond with another human, family, or other pack of wolves is possible, but it's never as strong as that first imprinted bond. There were advantages to both man and wolf to develop this relationship. The wolves, which eventually became our dogs, were faster and had stronger jaws, were more capable at tracking prey, and they had much better hearing than we do, and would warn us when threats approached. In return, the wolves received a warm fire to sleep by, a cooked meal, and what they could both expect from each other was companionship. Either a one-on-one or one-to-many relationship with the human as the pack leader, and a semi-symbiotic relationship developed between humans and dogs, one that would stand the test of time until today. The wolf progressed into becoming what is now our modern dog. The dogs didn't really have to take care of themselves as completely as they used to, and natural and manual selection reduced their temperament, made them more docile towards humans and somewhat towards each other. But they also went through selection by having tasks that they either excelled at or they failed at and perhaps sometimes died, either as hunting companions, pest control, guard dogs, or to help shepherds with their flocks. Additionally, and this may be shocking, when times got hard, I mean really hard, it was no secret that your next meal might be your best friend. You may think you wouldn't do that now, but you haven't really been really hungry. But if you got hungry enough, your instinct will kick in and overrule your emotions so that you can live just a few more days. It is millions of years of struggle and competition to make you. Don't you fool yourself into thinking that when life gets hard enough, that those millions of years of life's developments are going to be wiped away by your enlightenment. An enlightenment only available to you because you've been kept ignorant of your base nature that is developed over millions of years. Fast forward to about 50 years ago, and most pets weren't even allowed inside the house. Or if they were, it was only during the day, and at night, they were out. They either slept in the barn or a doghouse, which was a small shelter to keep them out of the rain. Dogs and most pets still had some functional purpose, as they have throughout history, whether guard dogs, shepherds, hunting companions, trackers, or pest control. And although love and loyalty have always been part of the relationship, very few animals were owned purely for giving and receiving love. Even in the 60s and 70s sitcom The Brady Bunch, which was supposed to represent the joys and the challenges, love and compassion of the modern family, owned a dog. And Tiger lived outside, and he had his own doghouse in the backyard. It's only in the most recent years that pets have become strictly, and to exclusion of any other function, subjects and objects of our love and devotion. And because we love them, we pamper them. Because we love them, when we see another dog being kept outside, we shrink back in horror and get angry at the shriveled heart of that dog's owner. Never mind that that dog is a Siberian Husky or a Malamute and is probably far more comfortable laying in the snow than it is in your too hot of a house. Today, you and everyone else has been shielded from the reality of our nature. Today, we buy food from giant national and regional chain supermarkets, such as Walmart's, Kroger's, Target's, Costco, and BJ's, that own thousands of stores and maintain the infrastructure and supply chains to keep those stores well stocked. Everything we eat is packaged thousands of miles away. And the closest you get to seeing how that food gets there is seeing a semi-tractor trailer on the highway with the brand emblazoned on the side of the truck. Everything is packed so tightly, even double packed sometimes, that we can't even smell or feel the meat within. Today, buying meat is no different than buying any other sterile product off the shelves. You don't experience any of the visual, olfactory, or tactile sensations, nor any of the associations or true realizations that meat is the flesh of a once breathing, living, and feeling animal. Although the first true supermarket sprung up about 100 years ago, it wasn't until recently that the supermarket had displaced nearly all grocers, butchers, delis, and fish markets. People even just in their 40s and 50s will remember most of us buying our meat from the butcher. The butcher bought carcasses from the slaughterhouse, which specialized in buying living animals, killing, dressing, and skinning those animals, and letting the meat hang in refrigeration to season properly before being sent to the region's butchers. Although we didn't have to slaughter and butcher our own animals, at least the process wasn't completely hidden from us. Walk into a butcher and you can smell all the meat and occasionally glimpse a hanging carcass through an open door where the butcher is preparing that animal and turning that animal into steaks, grinding what isn't good enough into burger and sausage meat, and selling the odd bits off to the delicatessen to be made into delicious delicacies like olive loaf, head cheese, liverwurst, and pork roll. This all might sound disgusting to you today, but yesterday we were no stranger to it and we all loved this stuff. Today, most of this stuff makes it into pet food, and we wouldn't even think about eating things like sweetbreads. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Go back 200 years, if you didn't live in a big city, you probably owned a farm, or were a hunter yourself, and you definitely had your own garden, and maybe even a few chickens or a goat. And if you didn't, then you bought directly from one of them, or from a town market where the farmers and hunters brought the meat that you eat and the skins to be turned into clothing or harnesses or tools and straps like leather hinges and horses' reins. In the city, everyone bought from markets found every city block, and those dead animals were carried on cart by horse or cow through the streets, and no one was ignorant of where their food came from. There was no false utopian sense of being elevated or evolved above our own basic needs. We are so divorced today from the process about how food, especially meat, gets to us, that to our brains, meat is just another sterile, manufactured product, not meat, not the animal flesh of a previously living creature. 200 years ago, 90% or more people were involved in the production of raw food product. Today, in the United States, about 14% of people are involved in food production, and less than 1% of the people are actually involved in handling raw food product, i.e. meat. However, this year, 3 billion animals are projected to be eaten. 3 billion. But you probably didn't know that. You are so divorced from the process that you have forgotten that to live, you have to kill. You are so separated from what brings food to your plate that you no longer have the experiential understanding that life is a constant struggle. And in order to survive, we are fighting in one way or another for our food. We are fighting to stave off disease. And we are competing with each other to assure that we and ours have better, easier access to quality of food and quality of life. All life is eat or be eaten. All life does the same thing. Whether it's squirrels preparing for winter by storing nuts in hidey holes or building a nest for winter, or an old wild dog struggling to remain strong in the pack, or become the pack's next meal, or left behind to be something else's meal. Or a human being seeking medical attention because a virus has taken hold and it is struggling to survive and thrive. Now, if you're still watching, you might be asking yourself, why am I dragging you through the grittier parts of our nature? About how we survive, and what the heck does that have to do with our bees? Okay, well, here it is. You've gone soft. I say you've gone soft and you can't make good decisions for your bees. We've gone so soft that even scientists are making emotional pleas about how we should take care of our bees. So, well, why couldn't I have just said that? Well, if I had, what would you have said? Really? Oh, no, not me. I get it. Oh, no, not me. I'm not soft. I read an article by a scientist who will remain unnamed, who said that beekeepers who didn't do anything to stop their bees from dying had cold, shriveled hearts. Now that to me shows a severe lack of dispassion. At best, a scientist should say, here are the facts and look at them. They should never make emotional pleas or propagate fear, uncertainty, and doubt. These two histories that I've outlined, we have collectively forgotten. We've forgotten that life is harsh, that life is dog eat dog, forgive the pun, and that life consumes life. And if you eat food that had to be killed first, then you are a predator. You eat life. Even highly processed food started out as a living thing. And if you eat it, you killed it. Maybe you didn't do the dirty deed yourself, but because you bought it, someone killed it for you. And it is important that you understand this. It is important for you to understand that perhaps the only reason why complex life developed and evolved is because of struggle. If life were easy, then it would never have needed to evolve and find ways to compete, to fight and fight back, to find advantages and new ways to survive. Because at that very primitive, primordial soup level, life still needed to find a way to survive when things were less than perfect. For instance, competition for raw materials, nutrients, external adversity like the puddle starting to dry up. What about that goo that got stuck between the wet and the dry? Didn't it find a way to survive? And then finally handle being completely dry or becoming mobile enough to dip a tendril back down into the water? What if your neighbor was in the way? Do I just let myself die? Or do I develop a way to reach a little farther or push my neighbor out of the way? And now somehow, because our pets have become precious to us, pets that are natural born killers themselves, their quality of life must also be elevated far above what it would be naturally. We want to share our good fortune with our pets. There's nothing wrong with that. We rub our faces into their soft fur and their squishy bodies, and we sleep with them in our beds, and we feed them the best food that we know how to give them. Though, that's kind of debatable itself. How many of you are actually willing to spend $5, $6, or $7 for each meal for your pet? The only people who do that are the people who actually prepare real food for their pets. Food they were meant to eat, like meat, fish, internal organs, like liver and hearts. Are you one of those people? I'm guessing not. But I bet you wish you were. And if not, why not? Think about this. Think about this carefully. Get your head wrapped around that idea. If you do get your head wrapped around it, then you'll understand why the message I'm sharing today is so important. Important if you're going to save the bees. Suddenly, one day, not very long ago, putting bees in a box in your backyard made them your loving pets. Pets that need to be cared for, just like every other loved person, pet, or loved thing. They must be gingerly cared for. Hang on. Your pets live in your house. You walk them on the end of a leash. You bring them to the doctor when they're sick. You vaccinate them. You do everything that you can to protect them. You don't let them run around the neighborhood, socializing with every other disease-ridden cur. You don't let them run up and down the edge of the river where they might fall in and get swept away. You don't leave them outside in the rain. That's what it means to be a pampered pet. They're protected almost as if they were your own young. And you want to protect your own young from the harsh realities of life instead of preparing them for it. Your pets are by proxy your young. They are something you care very deeply about and will protect them as if they were your own children. Whatever happened to preparing our children for the harsh realities of life? When did that change? What you have lost is the ability to make dispassionate, smart decisions because you have forgotten how harsh life really is. And as a result, emotions are getting in the way of logic, intelligence, and clear decision making. Whether you realize it or not, subconsciously, you believe we live in the human-managed, ideal utopia. But is it? If it is, why are you protecting your young? From what do they need protection? If they do need your protection, what are you going to do if you're not there to protect them? Isn't it better to prepare them for what life might bring? Doesn't that lead to a longer, happier life of readiness rather than a dismal life of, I wasn't ready for this? It's within the last 30 years that everything has been turned upside down. Protect rather than prepare. We've done that to our kids, we've done that to our pets, and now we're doing it to the bees too. Watch my video on how saving the bees has really done more harm than good for the bees. This video, though, is about you. How you need to remember that life isn't easy. How you need to learn to uncloud your mind from emotions, biases, and attachments to allow yourself to make clear decisions. If you want to save the bees, you need to start thinking about the species, not the bees in your box. Listen, the bees are not your pets. Whether they live in boxes that you put them in or they find their own home in a tree, they have no idea or concept that there's any difference. They do not know you, except maybe as an occasional intruder. Bees are not confined to your home. They're not confined to your backyard. They live out in the open. They fly for miles in every direction. They're constantly exposed to the risks of being the wild creatures that they are. Bees are social. They visit each other, whether to make a social call or to recon or rob a colony, or maybe being robbed out by the strong. They are constantly exposed to and will catch pests and diseases from other bees. They'll pick the wrong field to gather nectar and get poisoned. The queen might get eaten by a dragonfly or a bird, and that's what potentially happens to every colony that's out there. Your pets don't have to deal with any of that. They are indoors, or they're out in the backyard, or they're on a leash. That's a pet's life. Bees are not your pets. They do have to deal with life every day. What makes the bees that are in your box so special? What makes them different, deserving of better treatment than the bees out in the trees? Absolutely nothing. There's no difference whatsoever, except when you protect your bees, you've become a pampered pet owner. Yet, again, the bees are not your pets. And those bees, which may not have been fit for survival, if they were in that tree, have now been given an extra opportunity to procreate, to share with the world what they have to offer, their weakness, their inability to survive on their own. If they needed your protection from the harsh realities of life, haven't you just condemned another colony to suffering? What if you continue to protect your precious insects year in and year out? Aren't you the agent that allows more colonies to suffer? Isn't it more of a kindness to let a colony die on its own terms and let that suffering end? Isn't it better to refill that box with more fit bees that can take care of themselves without your help? Bees that don't need your protection and have a better chance of producing offspring that can take care of themselves. This is why going soft on your bees is bad. If you made a cold but clear-headed decision to let your bees die, if that's what they were going to do, haven't you reduced the amount of suffering in the world? If you're soft and full of humane caring saves those bees of yours, aren't you ultimately leading them to more and more suffering? You can't save the bees one colony at a time. You can only save the bees by preparing them for the harsh realities of life. And you can only prepare the bees for the harsh realities of life by letting the weak ones die off and filling the void with bees that have what it takes. That's what nature does. Nature abhors a void. Nature does everything she can to fill voids. Don't go soft. Don't let your emotions get in the way. You need to think clearly when making decisions. Every decision. So now you might ask, how do I find bees that have what it takes? How do I find good bees? There is only one way, and it's the way that nature does it. You must allow yourself to be dispassionate. You must not let emotion cloud your decision making. You must allow yourself to become detached from your bees so you could clearly see the bigger picture. The only way to find bees that don't die is to let your bees die. You must let those bees die so you can find the bees that don't die and come out of winter strong, ready for spring and ready to swarm. You must be able to let yourself say goodbye if it's time.